So I've been seeing this false narrative going around saying that the Batman is a flop because it didn't make a billion or so far is projected not to make a billion. And today I do want to talk about the whole Batman box office and people comparing it to BVS. So we have the records here. We have the Batman and we have Batman versus Superman here. Now I do want to reiterate this. I do want to make this clear. I think and I know this might be a hot take depending on who you are. I think Batman vs Superman is the better film. I love Batman vs Superman. Anyone who's a subscriber of the channel knows very well how much I love Batman vs Superman. It's a movie I love. You can see a poster back there, Batman vs Superman. And look, I think the Batman was freaking phenomenal. I think the Batman was great. The cinematography. I've done two whole entire reviews on the Batman, and you guys know I have a deep love for the Batman. But Batman vs Superman, specifically Dawn of Justice, to me is the better movie, and to me it's just this great film about revenge and all that. But ever since 2016, there's always been that conversation as to why didn't Batman vs Superman make a billion? Why did it not make a billion? Now let me say this: Batman vs Superman, it did not flop. I think anyone who knows anything about box office knows Batman vs Superman did not flop. Worldwide, it made 873 million in the box office. That's a number that most any movie would love to have. So the movie didn't flop. However, let's not deny it. In an era where comic book movies were completely showing up, Avengers was dominating the box office. The X-Men movies were, had a lot of love. I think around this time Deadpool came out, so Deadpool, obviously changed the genre. Logan came out a year after this, changed the genre. Around 2016, 2017, around the time Batman vs Superman came out, the comic book genre was at its highest it's ever been, at least up until that point. So, realistically, everyone expected Batman vs Superman to make a billion. But let's not deny this. As us Zack Snyder fans, we have to remind ourselves that Batman vs Superman should have made a billion in its sleep. Which is not anything by the way, making a billion in the box office is something very few movies can do. Unless you're like a Fast and Furious movie or a comic book movie. Realistically, if you're in any movie besides those two franchises or Star Wars or something like that, if you're not in a major franchise, don't expect to make a billion. And even if it is a major franchise, sometimes you are going to have to expect not to make a billion. But Batman vs Superman had a little bit of a different scenario. Now, before I even get into that, we do have to talk about the Batman. The Batman was what we're talking about today because I've been seeing some Zack Snyder fans saying that the Batman is a flop because it didn't make a billion or it's not projected. And so far worldwide, it is at 672 million worldwide. Let's be realistic here. The Batman should have never been expected to ever reach numbers for BVS. Now, I've been seeing a lot of people saying, oh, but BVS was, you guys are saying BVS is a flop because it didn't make a billion. By the way, it was not a flop. Let me remind everyone again, Batman vs Superman did not flop. However, let's be honest, in an era where comic book movies are dominating, a movie titled Batman vs Superman, two of the most iconic superheroes of all time, that movie should have made a billion in its sleep. The conversation shouldn't be why didn't it make a billion. The conversation should have been how did it not reach 2 billion, which almost no movie has ever done, by the way. Only Titanic. Wait, did Titanic make 2 billion? I don't remember, but Avatar did, Endgame did. Only like 2, 3, 4 movies. I think it's only 2 movies, honestly. I don't remember. I would have to search that up later today if Titanic even made a billion. But the Batman, let's remember, when you measure box office, the number one thing that contributes to box office is the budget of the movie, because there's no such thing as a specific number that means your movie's a success. Some movies label their success at only 100 million. Some movies are 300 million. Some movies are 600 million. Some movies are a billion. I don't know. It depends what kind of movie, what kind of budget your movie has. The Batman's budget was 185 million. 185 million. 185 million. That was the budget for the Batman. Batman vs Superman's budget was 250 million US dollars. So you can already see a noticeable difference right here. $250 million for BVS and $185 million for the Batman. So how much does the Batman make? 600 or so far, because remember, this movie's still in theaters, so it's still going to make a little more extra money. 600 million worldwide. Batman vs. Superman did 873 million worldwide. Now, anyone who says the Batman flopped because it didn't reach $1 billion, you have to remember a couple of things. First of all, the difference between BVS, the reason why people expected BVS to make $1 billion and the Batman to not make $1 billion is because, let's remember, both of them have the title Batman. So that's one thing we can compare fairly. Both of them have the name Batman. And whether we want to deny it or not, the Batman is one of the most profitable fictional characters of all time. One of. So anytime a Batman movie comes out, you have to expect big numbers. But the major difference between these two is not only does it have Batman in the title, it has Batman versus Superman. We cannot deny this. Batman and Superman fighting in a movie for the very first time in cinematic history, that is something that should have made $1 billion in its sleep. Because let's not deny it. You go to any stranger right now in public and ask them, do you know who Batman and Superman are? They'll tell you very well they know who they are. They're superheroes. They're popular superheroes. Not only that, but you also had a little bit of a benefit that Man of Steel, while, look, Man of Steel isn't a loved movie, but there are people who love it. It also has the backing of that. Now, it also has the one problem they do have is that a lot of people didn't like Man of Steel either, so you could say there's two ways. But let's be honest, the people who didn't like Man of Steel, they were still looking forward to Batman vs. Superman. Now, the reason why these two are different is because this Batman movie, let's also remember how they promoted it. When you see the trailers for the Batman, it sounds like it's a serial killer detective murder kind of story, while BVS was this big action fight battle war between two gods, or not two gods, but two major characters who have so much history. So this movie was easily going to win. And also we have to remember children. Families are the big thing that gets the box office. When you promote a movie to a family audience or people or parents who want to take their kid to watch a movie, Batman vs. Superman was just that. Because yes, there is an R-rated version, the ultimate cut, but let's be honest, that really wasn't R-rated. There's like two little scenes that do imply it's R-rated, but let's be honest, that movie really isn't R-rating. I'll say this: Batman vs. Superman to me is the better movie than the Batman. I'll say that right now. But if you're a parent, when you see the trailers for Batman vs. Superman, you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, let's go! It's a big blockbuster with two major characters. Let's go." The Batman, however, I personally know some parents who didn't want to go show their kids this movie because, just look at the description. It says, when the Riddler, a sadistic serial killer, begins murdering key political figures in Gotham, Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption and question his family's involvement. That automatically already turns away a lot of parents from this movie. But instead, in this one, you see, fearing the actions that Superman are left unchecked, Batman takes on the Man of Steel while the world wrestles with what kind of hero it really needs. This movie with families, just by the promotion. We're talking solely by promotion. This movie definitely should, obviously, there's no debate. Batman vs. Superman should always lap a movie called just The Batman. It should always. But that's not what we're here to talk about mainly. I see so many people comparing that BVS and the Batman, and I even heard a Snyder fan putting out a tweet saying, "Oh, it's hypocritical that people label BVS a flop, but not the Batman." Well, it's not. First of all, again, let me remind everyone: Batman vs. Superman was not a flop at all. Sure, it did disappoint. People were expecting $1 billion, rightfully so. And I'll still say this. I think Warner Brothers should have seen this number and thought to themselves, hey, you know what? It's only our second movie in the cinematic universe. We still have a long plan ahead. Let's at least release Justice League in the Zack Snyder form. Release Suicide Squad in a David Ayer form. and then see how the audience reacts. That I've always said that. That's what I would have done. And then maybe Aquaman. I forgot how far into filming they were with Aquaman at that time, but Aquaman, just let those movies get released. Or Wonder Woman also did get a normal release, but that's what I've been saying for years. I think they should have just allowed these movies to breathe in, allow the original cut of those movies to be out there in public, and then look, if let's say Justice League failed box office wise, let's say Suicide Squad did that too, all these movies failed box office, critically, and audience wise, then at that point Warner Brothers should have looked, they should have reflected, and they should have been like, hey, you know what, I guess let's start rebooting. Because what they did with Justice League, bringing, I'm not even going to talk about it because most of you guys already know the story. When they brought in Joss Whedon and they brought in everything like that, at that point you could tell, yeah, they gave up. It's kind of like shooting yourself on the foot right before a race. You give yourself an insane disadvantage, and that's what they did with the rest of the DCU. That's what they did. Although I do think the DCU has been changing the narrative recently, but it is what it is. But again, the people who are saying that the Batman is a flop because it won't make a billion, which I don't think it will. I don't think it will. So looking at the numbers, looking at everything, it doesn't seem like they're going to be making a billion anytime soon. Maybe I do think the Batman 2 has a higher demand for it to make a billion. I wouldn't say it's there yet. Maybe until we get to like Batman 3. I don't know, but again, when it comes to box office, the main thing you have to look for is how much did it make? How much did it make? I mean, how much did it cost to make, and then how much it made? 185 million worldwide. They already, you have to triple your budget. You have to triple your profits when you make these movies. BVS 250 million ended up making 800 million, which is still a really good number, a number that very few movies can accomplish. Let's be honest. But again, the main reason why this movie was expected to make a billion is it's a title called Batman vs. Superman in a time where comic book movies, like let's say this movie was released back in like 2010, 2011, or 2008, around that time. I would say this was a fair number. And I still think it's a good number. It's still a good number. And I think Warner Brothers panicking after seeing these numbers is a little bit stupid. It's a bit stupid from Warner Brothers to do that. But again, the major difference is this movie, let's not deny. Can anyone deny that this movie shouldn't have made a billion? A movie called Batman vs. Superman and the height of the comic book genre. Let's also remember the Batman had to deal with the pandemic. And I know a lot of people believe that the pandemic era is over. It's not. There are still people who do not want to go to the movies no matter what movie's out there. Sure, Spider-Man No Way Home made $1 billion, but let's be honest, that was because of the whole hype and momentum of the old characters coming back. Multiverse, this multiverse, that is what really got people going to the theaters for No Way Home. The Batman did have a lower chance of getting to that No Way Home number. BVS, however, didn't have to deal with that. In fact, it had the advantage of dealing with the comic book genre at its highest point at that moment. So those are two completely different stories. And that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys for being here. I did find it frustrating because I did see some people saying, "Oh, it's hypocritical." It's not hypocritical. It's just fact that BVS should have always been expected to make $1 billion. Now, again, let me remind you, I do not think that Warner Brothers should have reacted the way they did. I can understand being a little worried and a little nervous because let's also remember it's not like when BVS ended. It's not like, that's also another difference. The Batman was getting insane praise by critics and audience. A lot of people even debating that this movie is as good as The Dark Knight or better or whoever. I don't know. That's always subjective. But Batman vs. Superman was a completely different story. Let's remember when Batman vs. Superman ended. It came. Look, I feel like there's too many new Snyder fans because I feel like most Snyder fans are post 28. Not most, but half or even a lot of Snyder fans are post 2018 fans, meaning that they didn't know what it really was like when BVS came out. Because let's remember, back in 2016, the DC and Marvel's rivalry was at its highest point because you had Captain America Civil War, you had Batman vs Superman, you had Suicide Squad coming out. You had, you know, Marvel versus DC in the highest point it's ever been. I remember back then on Twitter, I saw so many debates, so many arguments between the two companies, and it was an insane time to be a comic book fan at that time. And Batman vs Superman was at the height of that war. But remember, when Batman vs Superman ended, a lot of people did not like it. Critics and audience. I still to this day, when I tell people I love BVS, half of the people I tell that to are like, "Really? You like that movie?" Everyone's always surprised by me loving that movie. Everyone's always surprised. But when I say I love the Batman, that's normal. Almost everyone loved the Batman. And I'm someone who still thinks BVS is a better movie than the Batman. But again, anyone who says the Batman is a flop because it didn't make a villain, you either are a biased Snyder fan and you don't want to accept facts, or you just don't know how box office works, which is fine. Look, I think there's too many movie talk YouTubers who don't know box office. I actually never do box office predictions. I'll always say I think this movie might do well box office. I think this movie won't do well. Like, for example, I don't think Morbius is going to do well, but I don't do an exact prediction. But I do think there's a lot of fans out there who don't really know how to perfectly distinguish and know how to talk about box office. And I do think you're very ignorant if you think that the Batman should have made $1 billion. Now, we might have a different debate once the Batman 2 comes out, depending on what they do with it, or especially when they have Joker as the main villain, because I do think that's going to have to be a question of maybe this time it should make $1 billion. I don't know. But if you're talking about a movie, and let's also remember, Robert Pattinson, a lot of people still saw him as Twilight. You know how many times I heard somebody tell me that they weren't going to watch it because they thought it was a bad casting to get Twilight Boy? That narrative was still out there. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. You guys let me know in the comment sections down below. What do you think about this debate? If you agree or disagree, please let me know in the comment sections down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.